Have you ever noticed when building data pipelines between SaaS applications and your data warehouse that engineering wise, it hardly ever ends up quite the way you'd like? You might not be given a test environment, ETL tools are out of step with your data modeling, changes are made across many different systems and therefore have to be timed carefully. When designing Omnata, we considered all of these challenges and architected a powerful sync engine that works with what you have rather than requiring you to compromise or to spend time building your own tooling around it. In this video, we show what this looks like for a user of dbt. Not only does Omnata augment your Snowflake account as a native application, but we've built a toolkit which natively integrates into your dbt workflow, cooperating with your different application environments and your existing change management processes. What you're going to see today is an end-to-end pipeline where some website inquiry submissions captured by Typeform are loaded into Snowflake by the Omnata native application. Some light dbt modeling is done, then they are synced out to Zendesk as tickets. You're going to see three things. First, no new infrastructure, including schedulers and orchestrators. It's only your existing Snowflake account with our app installed, and we leave dbt in the driver's seat. Second, there'll be no new change management processes. A single pull request includes your dbt modeling changes as well as both sides of the Omnata Sync configuration. And third, and most importantly, you'll be able to test this whole pipeline through all the appropriate environments, even though they have different offerings. In this case, Typeform is a simpler product where you only get a single environment, whereas Zendesk offers sandboxes. But despite that, you'll see a full non-production pipeline running where test data flows all the way through in a way that's representative of production, and then a single Git merge to deploy it. So let's do a quick tour. Starting in Typeform, we have a single account, but we're using workspaces to distinguish between test and production. So we have a support request form which we copy to the other workspace, like so. Here's what the form looks like. I've already submitted some fake answers, which you can see here. And on the other side, we have Zendesk. So we have a sandbox and a production environment. And this is where the tickets are going. Then in the middle, we have Snowflake with the Omnata native app installed, along with the Typeform and Zendesk plugins. I've already created the connections to the apps since we already showed that in a different demo. And we're running the whole show from dbt Cloud. So any flavor of dbt core is supported. We're using cloud in this demo. We've installed the dbt Omnata Sync package, which manages the configuration and running of syncs via stored procedure calls to the native app. So first, we're going to create the inbound sync in Omnata. So we go to new sync and we choose branching mode because we want these advanced features. And then we'll select the Typeform plugin. And we're going to pick the production connection, which is our only option. And we're going to sync inbound. In other words, we're loading data into Snowflake. And we're going to choose the production workspace, first of all. And we're going to sync in the form data. So we want both the streams for the support request form. One has the responses themselves, and the other has each of the answers for those responses. And Typeform form submissions are just created once, and they're never updated. So we're just going to do it incrementally and append. And we're going to choose DBT as the scheduler, which means it won't actually run unless we do a DBT run. So we fix up the name, and then we're going to stage the sync. Okay, so that's created, but first we want to work in a branch. So we create a new branch in Omnata, which is going to send us back through the configuration, but it's going to allow us to propose changes. So the first thing it asks for is the connection. Now we don't have two Typeform accounts, so we're going to do the next best thing, which is test elsewhere in the same account. This is the pragmatism of Omnata. Sometimes there's constraints out of your control and you need the second or third best thing. So when we get to this next screen, we're going to make the workspace a branch-only change. This allows us to divert the pipeline slightly while still proposing other changes in the branch. So when this change is merged, it won't include that workspace, but it will include the rest of the configuration. So we're going to change the branching behavior. We want to start empty each time we open a new branch rather than carry on the production data set that's already been synced. And now we can go ahead and create the branch, stage the branch. So with the branch created, let's get the test data into Snowflake. So to do that, Omnata will give us a DBT model definition that we can copy and paste into our DBT project. So when DBT builds this model, it's pulling in the latest data from Typeform. So you might be thinking, why do I need to click around the UI, but then use this YAML configuration afterwards? So we think this is the best of both worlds. Omnata plugin configurations can be quite dynamic. The forms are not always just simple values. You can be presented with different questions depending on earlier choices. So once you have built this configuration though, and you've committed it to version control, you can then always apply it from the DBT side to other environments. So we're just copying those two files into DBT. This is the inbound sync model. So we'll save that, and that should be everything. Now we can go ahead and run the build. So the build has worked successfully. Now, even though we ran it from DBT, we can go back to the Omnata native app, and the run will appear in the run history like any other type of sync. And we can see the number of streams, the number of changes. And we can also go and now look at the data, which lands into the native applications database. And we can now query that data. And we should see our support request form answers. Now for our DBT projects, we don't want to have to create these as sources manually. We just want a model which automatically points to the appropriate table for the appropriate stream for each environment. And so we can go back to the Omnata native application, and it will actually give us another type of model definition, which for inbound syncs, for every stream, you can create a model which represents that particular stream and is automatically sourced to the place where it lands. So you can ref that model downstream. Now I'm going to skip ahead a little bit here. Just doing the last one now. Now, each of these streams that we create, they start to appear in the DAG. These are all going to be created as views. in the target database of the DBT project as opposed to the Omnata Sync engine app database. And skipping ahead again a little bit, I've just done some light data modeling in DBT, joined a few tables together. I've taken the answers from the form responses, crafted a tickets table to feed into Zendesk, and I've used post hooks to grant access to that table for the native application. So let's switch back to Omnata Sync and create a new sync. This time we're going to choose Zendesk. And thankfully this time we have two connections to choose from. The sandbox one is the non-production one. So this means it's going to automatically start us in a branch. So we're going outbound, syncing from Snowflake out to the app. We already granted access in those post hooks, so we shouldn't need to do that. We're going to choose the source table though, and that is going to give us the list of columns to use in the next step. Apologies for that lowercase column there. So we saw our 4 records there. Now we're going to use the create sync strategy because these are only loaded once. They don't get updated, these forms. So I'm just going to create the ticket once and then that's it for each record. And we're going to load into the tickets part of Zendesk. And now we have the outbound field mapper. So we're going to try this suggester. It's useful when there's a lot of columns and fields and they're named the same. It's kind of like a bulk mapping. In this case, we only have a few, so it's probably overkill. The ones that suggested look about right. We'll just fix that one up manually. So these are all the fields we need to map into Zendesk. So we click continue. And we're using the DBT scheduler, of course. We'll just probably fix up the name of the model. Now we have to provide a source model. So even though we told it the source table, we need to also tell it the name of the DBT model in the DBT project, just so that this can work across all environments. We don't have to tell it all the different places it might sync from in different branches. So we'll do that and we'll stage the sync. And that's done. And once again, we have to copy the DBT model config from the Omnata app into the DBT project. So this is an outbound sync. So there's a single model which has 2 files. We have the SQL file, which is just a reference to the source load table that we told it about previously. So we paste that one in. And then there's an accompanying YAML file, which includes all the actual field mappings and the other aspects of the sync. So we staged the sync in the UI, but the DBT run is the thing that actually applies the configuration and drives it from that point on. So I'm just going to kick off the build, and then while that's running, I'm going to explain a few things in the configuration file. So main target of prod. This means that the prod target in DBT corresponds to the main sync in Omnata, and any other target that we run against must be a branch in the Omnata Sync. So use DBT warehouse. That ensures that whatever warehouse is part of the current DBT run or is running the current DBT run is the one that runs the sync inside Snowflake as well, just so that we don't double up. Then we have match required targets. So this prevents different DBT developers clashing with each other locally. So unless your configuration matches on the native app side, then nothing will happen. Then you have the different branch connections being defined. You've got the branch only parameters, and the rest of it is pretty standard. So we go to Zendesk Sandbox. Here are our 4 tickets in the sandbox, which came from the test workspace in Typeform via Snowflake. And production still empty. So back to DBT. We do want to commit our changes, but before we do that, we haven't actually yet told Omnata Sync which connection we want to use for the main sync. We only did the branch. So we tell it Zendesk production is for the main sync. Doing that is going to slightly change the model config YAML. So we do need to grab the latest copy of that, update it, and hit save. Then we can go ahead and commit the changes in DBT Cloud. So we just have to give a little description of what has changed, and we'll call it Typeform responses, sync to Zendesk tickets, commit changes, and they're syncing. Okay, so now the config's all done. We want to open up a pull request on GitHub, which is where our DBT project lives. We can see we have our inbound and outbound sync configs and all the modeling we did in the middle. So we're going to merge this into the main branch. So again, we give a description of the changes for the pull request and create the pull request and merge it in. And over on the DBT side, we now want to kick off a job which runs on the main branch as production. And that has finished. So if we go over and look at Typeform, in production, we just have one response that I submitted. And then over in production Zendesk, we can see that same response. So the same pipeline that ran in test has gone all the way through to production there. So really hope you enjoyed the demo, and we'd love for you to give it a try. Please reach out if you have any questions. You can find the app on the Snowflake Marketplace. Thanks.